Okay. वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमती भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिने नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे सर्वशास्त्रार्थ सर्ववेदिक सत्फल सर्वसिद्धांत रत्नाढ्य सर्वलोकैक दिलप्रद सर्वभागवत प्राण श्रीमद् भागवत प्रभु कलिध्वांतोदितादित्य श्री कृष्ण परिवर्तित परमानंद पाठाय प्रेमवर्षक्षराय ते सर्वदा सर्वसेव्य श्री कृष्णाय नमस्तु मे मदेक बंधो मत्संगी मद्गुरो मन्महाधनो मनस्तार्क मद्भाग्य मदानंद नमोस्तुते असाधु साधुता दायी नतनी चोच्चता कर हान उंच कदाचिन्मां प्रेमना हृत्कंठे स्फुर ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. Okay, so today, okay, before I forget, um, on what is today's date? Okay, 30th. Uh, I'm not sure if 30th we will have a class or not, but first, second, third, fourth, we will not have a class. I have to go to Jagannath Puri for some service. And Dharma Prabhu is also coming with me. 30th also, that I'll confirm it. I'll put it in writing in the Telegram group. We will make up for it. We will make up for it when we'll make up for it in. We'll make up for it. There are some days between Advaita Acharya appearance and Nityananda Trayadashi. I will use that. That is from 6th February to 11th February or like that. Currently, I have marked them as off holidays, but I have to find out when Nityananda Trayadashi is and see how to work it out. I'll keep you posted. Okay. So today is 2.2.17 to 2.2.24. These are all very dense verses. Second canto is in general a very dense canto. Everything that comes in the commentaries and in the purports are filled with a lot of information, compressed. Like 17. नयत्र कालो निमिषाम परः प्रभुः कुतो नु देवा जगताम य ईशिरे नयत्र सत्वं न रजस्तमश्च न वै विकारो न महान् प्रधानम. In that transcendental state of labdhopashanti, the state where peace is attained, there is no supremacy of devastating time which controls even the celestial demigods who are empowered to rule over mundane creatures, and what to speak of any supremacy of the demigods themselves. That means devastating time has no power over a person who has attained such tranquility. Now, devastating time controls even the celestial demigods. So, how can the celestial demigods, they rule over mundane creatures. So, how can the celestial demigods have power over a person who has attained this tranquility? That is the point. Nor is there the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance, nor even the false ego, material causation, or material nature. Tadevaha. He is reiterating what he stated before. Time has no power. Therefore, the devas have no power. So what to speak about the living creatures who are under the control of the devas? That is because they have no material designations. The phalam chad vividham. The result is of two types. Brahma kaivalya prapti, vaikuntha praptischa. Bhakti siddha jnana nishthatvad, bhakti maya jnana nishthatvad. One result is the attainment of impersonal liberation, Brahma kaivalya. Another is attainment of the Vaikuntha universe. And these are respectively because of being fixed in the process of impersonalistic knowledge, which is perfected by bhakti, or because of being fixed in knowledge in the form of bhakti itself, knowledge that is filled with bhakti itself. So two different varieties of cultivation of knowledge, understanding, realization that leads to two different results. Atha uttaravastham ajamila nyayena tatreva vaikuntha abhivyakti darshanarthamaha nayatreti yugmakena. The second variety is seen in the instance of Ajamila and so on. So in order to reveal the features of Vaikuntha, two verses are spoken, 17 and 18. Atra Vaikunthasya Sachidananda Rupatvam Shri Bhagavata eva uktam. The Sachidananda nature of Vaikuntha has been stated by Shri Bhagavan himself, 11th canto. Also, this will be this very Vaikuntha will be referred to in 10th canto, 10.28.15 to 16. Notice Tamasah Param in the description of Vaikuntha. He showed the Gopas his own abode, which was beyond darkness. That beyond darkness is an Upanishadic expression. It means beyond Prakriti. So one who has attained the status of Brahman, he is beyond the control of time, what to speak of the Devas. What is the nature of that Brahman? That Brahman has no Sattva-guna, Rajaguna, Tamaguna, no transformations of these modes such as Ahankara and so on. Devastating time, which controls even the celestial demigods by its manifestations of past, present, and future, does not act on the transcendental plane. The influence of time is exhibited by the symptoms of birth, death, old age, and disease. These four principles of material conditions are present everywhere in any part of the material cosmos, up to the planet Brahmaloka, where the duration of life of the inhabitants appears to us to be fabulous. Insurmountable time even brings about the death of Brahma. So what to speak of other demigods like Indra, Chandra, Surya, Vayu, and Varuna? The astronomical influence directed by the different demigods over mundane creatures is also conspicuous by its absence. In material existence, the living entities are afraid of satanic influence But for a devotee on the transcendental plane, there is no such fear at all. The living entities change their material bodies in different shapes and forms under the influence of the different modes of material nature. But in the transcendental state, the devotee is gunatita, or above the material modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Thus, the false ego of I am the Lord of all I survey does not arise there. In the material world, the false ego of the living entity trying to lord it over the material nature is something like the moths falling into a blazing fire. The moth is captivated by the glaring beauty of the fire. And when he comes to enjoy it, the blazing fire consumes him. In the transcendental state, the living being is pure in his consciousness, and as such, he has no false ego to lord it over the material nature. Rather, his pure consciousness directs him to surrender unto the Supreme Lord. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 7.19, Vasudeva Sarvam Miti Sa Mahatma Sudurlabhaha. All this indicates that in the transcendental state, there is neither material creation nor the causal ocean for material nature. The above mentioned state of affairs is factual on the transcendental plane, but is factually revealed in a transcendentalist knowledge of the advanced state of pure consciousness. Such transcendentalists are of two types, namely the impersonalists and the devotees. For the impersonalist, the ultimate goal or destination is the Brahmajyoti of the spiritual sky. But for the devotees, the ultimate goal is the Vaikuntha planets. Now, we should remember that these impersonalists are the ones who do not consider Bhagavan or Paramatma to be mithya. These kind of impersonalists. The ones who consider Paramatma and Bhagavan to be mithya, they do not even attain here. They go to hell. The devotees experience the above-mentioned state of affairs by attainment of spiritual forms for activity in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. But the impersonalist, because of his neglecting the association of the Lord, does not develop a spiritual body for spiritual activity, but remains a spiritual spark only, merged in the effulgent spiritual rays of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord is the full-fledged form of eternity, bliss, and knowledge, but the formless Brahmajyoti is simply eternity and knowledge. The Vaikuntha planets are also forms of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. And therefore, the devotees of the Lord who are admitted into the abode of the Lord also get bodies of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. As such, there's no difference between one and another. The Lord's abode, name, fame, entourage, etc. are of the same transcendental quality, and how this transcendental quality differs from the material world is explained here in this verse. In the Bhagavad Gita, three principal subjects have been explained by Lord Shri Krishna, namely Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. But one can reach the Vaikuntha planets by the practice of Bhakti Yoga only. The other two are incompetent in helping one reach the Vaikuntha planets, although they can, however, conveniently take one to the effulgent Brahmajyoti as described above. But even then, one will require at least a tinge of Bhakti Yoga. Text 18. Param padam vaishnavama mananti yad yan neti neti yatad utsisrikshava visrijya dauratnya mananya saukrada yudopaguhyar padam pade pade. The transcendentalists desire to avoid everything godless, for they know that supreme situation in which everything is related with the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Therefore, a pure devotee in absolute harmony with the Lord does not create perplexities, but worships the Lord, worships the lotus feet of the Lord at every moment, taking them into his heart. Nir upadhitvam kutaha ityataha paramiti. How is it that this object of experience by a person who has attained spiritual tranquility is free from material designations? That is now stated in this verse. The transcendentalists desire to avoid everything godless. They desire to avoid everything which is not connected to the Supreme Self, the ultimate self. The ultimate self is the Lord Vishnu, who is the super soul Who is the soul of the souls? Krishna is the soul of the souls. Neti neti evam utsrashtum ichhava dauradhyam dekhati atmatvam visrujya. They give up dauradhyam. Where is dauradhyam? They give up these perplexities of considering oneself to be one's body and so on. They embrace the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, Lord Shri Vishnu, which is worshipable in their hearts. They do not develop such saufrita, such a favorable attitude towards anything else. And they attain, I mean, this is that abode that they attain. Ananya Sufrita, Ekanta Bhaktya, Arha Padam, Sri Bhagavat Padam, Pade Pade Kshane Kshane, Upamushya Alingya, embracing the lotus feet of Sri Bhagavan with one pointed devotional service. Dauratnyam Dehadhyasamutsrijya, having given up the misidentification with the body, Vaishnavam, Sri Krishna Lokam, Amananti, Prapnuvanti, they attain the Vaishnava abode, which is the abode of Sri Krishna. These two verses are compatible. Attat. Attat. Where is the Attat? Attat. A very, very important concept in amongst the Mayavadis. For them, the entire purport of the Upanishads is summed up in Tat Tvam Asi. So they talk about the Tat entity, the Tvam entity. This is how they talk. Tat Padartha, Tvam Padartha. And then he realizes the Tat entity. And then they realize the Tvam entity. Anything which is not the Tat entity. So this Atat means that which is not spiritual. This, notice this, na iti na iti. This is a reference to a famous Upanishadic text, neti neti. That the Supreme Absolute Truth is not this, it is not this. It means it is not anything subtle, it is not anything gross. So those who desire to get beyond the subtle, beyond subtle matter and gross matter, and who give up Dauratmyam, Bhagavat Atmanor, Abheda Dashtam Visrijya. They give up the vision of oneness between Bhagavan and oneself. They, at every moment, they embrace the lotus feet of Sri Bhagavan, who is worthy of that worship, and who know him to be like that. That is the position of Sri Vaikuntha. Brahma Swarupam eva tad. This is nothing but the status of Brahman. Anena prema lakshana sadhana lingena nirakara rupam arthantaram nirastam. Because there are characteristics of the endeavor to attain prema bhakti here, noted in this verse, it is understood that the other interpretation of this verse, that this is actually something impersonal, is denying This is also admitted by the commentator on Muktabhala, by Providence. Even though that commentator is an impersonalist, he has admitted that this is actually the Vaikuntha abode of Lord Vishnu. Therefore, it is noted in the Shruti also that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is situated on his own glory. Chandogya Upanishad, in Katha Upanishad. Satvade Khatamna Santhi. How is it that Sattva-guna, Raja-guna, Tamo-guna don't exist in that state? Because that state is beyond Pradhana. It is the existence of Lord Vishnu. It is the impersonal aspect of Lord Vishnu. Even that is known by the devotees of Narada, devotees of the Lord like Narada. These devotees, they give up the foolishness of the pure impersonalism. They give up affection for anything devoid of connection with Lord Vishnu. They embrace the lotus feet of Sri Vishnu, who is worthy of all worship. They consider these lotus feet of the Lord are everything, all in all for us. So, even when they realize the Brahman feature of their master, they don't reject the world, which is considered by them to be an ingredient for service to the Supreme Lord. They give up Dauratmya, the perplexity of considering the body of Lord Vishnu to be Mayik. In the Bhagavad Gita, Madhyama, my abode, is mentioned several times. And according to the version of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, there exists the unlimited spiritual sky, wherein the planets are called Vaikunthas, or the abode of the Personality of Godhead. In that sky, which is far, far beyond the material sky and its sevenfold coverings, there is no need of the sun or the moon, nor is there necessity of electricity for illumination, because the planets are self-illuminating and more brilliant than the material suns. Pure devotees of the Lord are absolutely in harmony with the personality of Godhead, or in other words, they always think of the Lord as their only dependable friend and well-wisher. They do not care for any mundane creature up to the status of Brahma, the Lord of the universe. Only they can definitely have a clear vision of the Vaikuntha planet. Such pure devotees, being perfectly directed by the Supreme Lord, do not create any artificial perplexity in the matter of transcendental understanding by wasting time in discussing what is Brahman and what is non-Brahman or Maya. Nor do they falsely think of themselves as one with the Lord, or argue that there is no existence of the Lord separately, or that there is no God at all, or that the living beings are themselves God, or that when God incarnates himself, he assumes a material body. Nor do they concern themselves with many obscure speculative theories, which are in actuality so many stumbling blocks on the path of transcendental understanding. Apart from the class of impersonalists or non-devotees, there are also classes who oppose themselves as devotees of the Lord, but at heart maintain the idea of salvation by becoming one with the impersonal Brahman. They wrongly manufacture their own way of devotion service by open debauchery and mislead others who are simpletons or debauchees like themselves. All these non-devotees and debauchees are, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti, duratmas or crooked souls in the dress of mahatmas or great souls. Such non-devotees and debauchees are completely excluded from the list of transcendentalists by the presentation of this particular verse by Shukadeva Goswami. So the Vaikuntha planets are factually the supreme residential places called the Parampadam. The impersonal Brahmajyoti is also called the Parampadam due to its being the rays of the Vaikuntha planets as the sun rays are the rays of the sun. It is a matter of common knowledge that when children are playing in the park and it is under sunshine, Then the parents, they call out and say, don't be in the sun. Okay. So what does that mean? That means they're equating the sunlight with sun. So even in ordinary language, such identification exists. In the Bhagavad Gita 14.27, it is clearly said that the impersonal Brahmajyoti rests on the person of the Lord. And because everything rests on the Brahmajyoti directly and indirectly, everything is generated from the Lord, everything rests on Him. And after annihilation, everything is merged in Him only. Therefore, nothing is independent of Him. A pure devotee of the Lord no longer wastes valuable time discriminating Brahman from non-Brahman because he knows perfectly well that the Lord, Parabrahman, by his Brahman energy, is interwoven into everything. And thus everything is looked upon by a devotee as the property of the Lord. The devotee tries to engage everything in his service and does not create perplexities by falsely lording it over the creation of the Lord. He is so faithful that he engages himself as well as everything else in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. In everything, the devotee sees the Lord and he sees everything in the Lord. The specific disturbance created by a duratma or crooked soul is due to his maintaining that the transcendental form of the Lord is something material. Text 19. इत्थं मुनिस्तु पर रमेद व्यवस्थितो विज्ञान दृग्वीर्य सुरंधित आशयः स्वपाषणा पीड्य गुदम ततो नीलम स्थानेषु षट्सु नमयेजितक्लमः. By the strength of scientific knowledge, one should be well situated in absolute realization and thus be able to extinguish all material desires. One should then give up the material body by blocking the air hole through which stool is evacuated with the heel of one's foot and by lifting the life air from one place to another in the 6 primary places. The 6 primary places are the 6 chakras. Achyutanam Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhuji, those who say that everyone is God or we all are God, they will be called Mayavadis or impersonalists?
Prabhupada uses the expression impersonalism, Mayavad, all of that synonymous. They're all rascals.
So the genuine...
There is a high-class rascal, low-class rascal. Low-class rascal goes to hell. High-class rascal goes to Brahmajyoti. This is how Prabhupada presents it. They are not allowed entrance into the Vaikuntha universe. Either case. That going to Brahmajyoti and all that, that simply means, another way of saying it is, they attain self-realization without realization of the personality of Godhead. This is what is, in the Ramanuja tradition, they refer to it as Kaivalya Mukti. Kaivalya means you simply realize that you are a soul, you are spiritual, you don't identify yourself with matter or its products, and you do not consider yourself, you don't realize your relationship with Bhagavan, Lord Vishnu. Tasmad ittham brahmatvena vyavasthito munihi uparamet. So the sage who is well situated in Brahman realization should retire from all material activities. The word tu, but, indicates that this refers to a person who is fully nishkama, a person who is not interested in fulfilling his material desires. That is going to come up now in text 22. A person who does have various material desires and wants to pursue them and fulfill them. Vijnana Drik. Vijnana means Shastra. Vijnana Drik means a person whose knowledge is entirely scriptural knowledge. Virya refers to the strength of such knowledge. Survandhita. Survandhita means uh, destroyed. Actually, it means well cooked or completely destroyed. What is destroyed? All these materialistic aims of life to engage in sense enjoyment. All of these are destroyed by the strength of knowledge of the scriptural import. And then the second half of the verse talks about how he gives up his body. The six primary places or the six chakras begin with the navel. They go up. From the navel, they go up. Tatra prathamam nabhe adha स्वाधिष्ठान चक्रे अथिरोप्य उरसी कंठा अधो देश स्थिते विशुद्ध चक्रे. These are all different places. The place beyond, below the navel, then Swadhisthana chakra, then in the chest, then in the throat. I mean the chakra which is just below the throat, Vishuddha chakra. It looks like these are all very just common knowledge or what? There are many duratmas who claim to have realized themselves as Brahman and yet are unable to conquer material desires. In the Bhagavad Gita 18.54, it is clearly explained that an absolutely self-realized soul becomes completely aloof from all material desires. Material desires are based on the false ego of the living being and are exhibited by his childish and useless activities to conquer the laws of material nature and by his desire to lord it over the resources of the five elements. With such a mentality, one is led to believe in the strength of material science with its discovery of atomic energy and space travel by mechanical vehicles. And by such tiny advancements in material science, the false egoist tries to challenge even the strength of the Supreme Lord, who can finish all man's tiny endeavors in less than a second. The well-situated self or Brahman realized soul perfectly understands that the Supreme Brahman or the personality of Godhead is the all-powerful Vasudeva, and that he, the self-realized living being, is a part and parcel of the Supreme Whole. As such, his constitutional position is to cooperate with him in all respects in the transcendental relation of the served and servitor. Such a self-realized soul ceases to exhibit his useless activities of attempting to lord it over material nature. Being scientifically well informed, he fully engages himself in faithful devotion to the Lord. The expert yogi who has thoroughly practiced the control of the life air by the prescribed method of the yoga system is advised to quit the body as follows. He should plug up the evacuating hole with the heel of the foot and then progressively move the life air on and on to six places: the navel, abdomen, heart, chest, palate, eyebrows, and cerebral pit. Controlling the life air by the prescribed yogic process is mechanical, and the practice is more or less a physical endeavor for spiritual perfection. In olden days, such practice was very common for the transcendentalists, for the mode of life and character in those days were favorable. But in modern days, when the influence of the Kali age is so disturbing, practically everyone is untrained in this art of bodily exercise. Concentration of the mind is more easily attained in these days by the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. The results are more effective than those derived from the inner exercise of the life air. 20. नाभ्यां स्थितं हृद्यथिरोप्य तस्मात् उदानगत्यो रसिकं नयेन् मुनिः ततो न संधाय धिया मनस्वी स्वतालमूलं शनकैर्नयेत. The meditative devotee should slowly push up the life air from the navel to the heart, from there to the chest, and from there to the root of the palate. He should search out the proper places with intelligence. I think that is Brahmana Nadya, it must be wrong. It looks like Brahmanadya. Anyway, this is all hi-fi technology. It looks like the life air can go out in various places. Therefore, slowly it should be brought to the root of the palate. Slowly push up. There are 6 circles of the movement of the life air. An intelligent bhakti yogi should search out these places with intelligence and in a meditative mode. Among these mentioned above is the Swadhisthana chakra, or the powerhouse of the life air. And above this, just below the abdomen navel, is the Manipura chakra. When the meditative devotee searches out the next higher circle of the life air, he reaches the Anahata chakra in the heart. And further up, when the life air is placed at the root of the palate, he reaches the Vishuddha chakra. There is a gross body and there is a subtle body. And the interface between these two is the prana sharira, is the network of the different pranas, the life airs. Therefore, there is discussion about Annamaya Purusha or Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, and so on. Text 21. Tasmad Bhruvorantaramannyetan niruddha satta yatanon apekshah chitva muhurtardham akuntha drishtir nirbhidya murdhan visrujet param gata. Thereafter, the Bhakti Yogi should life air up between the eyebrows and then blocking the 7 outlets of the life air. He should maintain his he should maintain his aim for going back home, back to Godhead. If he is completely free from all desires for material enjoyment, he should then reach the cerebral pole and give up his material connections, having gone to the Supreme. Notice the expression Bhakti Yogi. That is why the Sri Vaishnavas keep on saying, we are not Bhakti Yogis, we are not Bhakti Yogis. What they mean is, we are not engaged in what we call Yoga Mishra Bhakti or Bhakti Mishra Yoga. There is something in the chat box. Are there anyone who follows this process nowadays? There are a number of people who are trying to follow Ashtanga Yoga. Most of them are just interested in health, which is very silly because Ashtanga Yoga is not even meant for that. But there are a number of people who are actually interested in the process of Ashtanga Yoga itself. We hear that Prabhupada told his disciples in Kumbh Mela to not offend the yogis. They are practicing from hundreds of years. Yeah, I've heard that also. It's not surprising. The process of giving up all material connections and returning home back to Godhead, the Supreme is recommended here. The condition is that one should be completely freed from desire for material enjoyment. There are different grades of material enjoyments in respect to duration of life and sensual gratification. The highest plane of sensual enjoyment for the longest period of life is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita 9.20. All are but material enjoyments, and one should be thoroughly convinced that he has no need of such a long duration of life, even in the Brahmaloka planet. He must return home back to Godhead and must not be attracted by any amount of material facilities. Any amount of material facilities and any variety of material facilities. And any quality of material facilities. You may, because there are lower quality, medium quality, higher quality. In the Bhagavad Gita 2.59, it is said that this sort of material detachment is possible to attain when one is acquainted with the supreme association of life. Param drishtvā nivartate. One cannot be freed from material attraction unless he has complete understanding of the nature of spiritual life. I'll read it again. One cannot be freed from material attraction unless he has complete understanding of the nature of spiritual life. The propaganda by a certain class of impersonalists that spiritual life is void of all varieties is dangerous propaganda to mislead the living beings into becoming more and more attracted by material enjoyments. As such, persons with a poor fund of knowledge cannot have any conception of the Param, the Supreme. They try to stick to the varieties of material enjoyments, although they may flatter themselves as being Brahman realized souls. Such less intelligent persons cannot have any conception of the Param, as mentioned in this verse, and therefore they cannot reach the Supreme. Devotees have full knowledge of the spiritual world, the personality of Godhead, and its transcendental association in unlimited spiritual planets called Vaikuntha Lokas. Herein, Akunta Drishtihi is mentioned. Akuntha and Vaikuntha convey the same import. Let's see. Akuntha Drishtihi, one whose aim is targeting, going back home, back to God. So Akuntha and Vaikuntha have the same sense. Even etymologically, Y is an indication of negation, and A is also an indication of negation. And only one who has his aim fixed upon that spiritual world and personal association with the Godhead can give up his material connections even while living in the material world. This Param and the Param Dhama mentioned in several places in the Bhagavad Gita are one and the same thing. One who goes to the Param Dhama does not return to the material world. This freedom is not possible even by reaching the topmost loka of the material world. The life air passes through 7 openings, namely 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. Generally, it passes through the mouth at the time of an ordinary man's death. But the yogi, as above mentioned, who controls the life air in his own way, generally releases the life air by puncturing the cerebral hole in the head. The yogi, therefore, blocks up all the above mentioned 7 openings so that the life air will naturally burst forth through the cerebral hole. This is the sure sign of a great devotee's leaving the material connection. This is like that Achyutananda, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's son. If I get time, I'll read it out. X22. I thought I read it out in Bhakti Shastri Deluxe. I don't remember. X22. Yati prayasyan nripaparameshtyam vaihayasanam utayad viharam ashtadhipatyam gunasannivaye sahaiva gachin manasendriyaischa. However, O king, if a yogi maintains a desire for improved material enjoyments, like transference to the topmost planet Brahmaloka, or the achievement of the eightfold perfections, travel in outer space with the Vaihayasas, sky beings, or a situation in one of the millions of planets, then he has to take away with him the materially molded mind and senses. Manasa indriyaihi cha. Satyo mukti muktva krama mukti prakaramaha yadi iti dashabhihi. So having stated the process of Sadhyo Mukti. Sadhyo Mukti means immediate liberation. Immediate means, he just gives up the body whenever he wants and bang, he's over. He's gone to the spiritual world on the other side of Brahmajyoti. It's all over, finished. Then now, Shukadeva Goswami begins to talk about sequential liberation, step-by-step liberation. Yadi iti dashabhihi. In 10 verses beginning with text 22. Yadi tu. If he's going towards Brahmaloka. If he's going to the abode which is sported by the Siddhas who are flying in the sky. If he is going towards the status where there are the 8 features of rulership, that means the 8 mystic powers, Anima and so on. anywhere within the Brahmanda, which is filled with the three modes of material nature. Then, Dehatyaga Avasare, at that opportunity of giving up the body, he should not give up his mind and senses. Into tai sahayeva tatal lokam bhogartam gache. Should go to all of these places with his mind and senses. Sense refers to subtle sense. And what is this? I thought there are some questions here. Is it possible that we can increase our life duration? Actually, in the yoga system, what they do is they slow down breathing using certain complicated techniques. And Ayuhu or lifespan is actually measured in terms of breathing. This many breaths, this much of inhale, exhale, this much of breaths. So when that is slowed down, then you get to live longer. When Bhagavatam is meant for devotees, for pure devotional service, then why is this yogic process explained here? Because Bhagavatam is pointing out different varieties of devotional service in addition to pure devotional service to help us understand that we should do only pure devotional service and not execute any of the mixed processes. It is also meant to point out how pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord is superior to these mixed versions. In the upper status of the planetary systems, there are facilities thousands and thousands of times greater for material enjoyments than in the lower planetary systems. The topmost planetary systems consist of planets like Brahmaloka and Dhruvaloka, the pole star, and all of them are situated beyond Maharloka. The inhabitants of those planets are empowered with eightfold achievements of mystic perfection.
Prabhu, then certain activities in which my rate of breathing, the activities which increase it, that means I am shortening my life
Look, I have not
purposefully.
studied. I have not studied
If I
Ashtanga
am
Yoga. I'm
running,
not trained in Ashtanga Yoga. So I don't know all this. What exactly is this control of breath? Prabhupada has mentioned this. And I know that's a fact. That is what they say in Ashtanga Yoga. But there's a process behind it. There's a process behind it. Just like we hear,
no, like,
Yatha Kanchanatam Yanti. Just as bell metal is turned into gold, like that, an ordinary human being is turned into a dvija by the process of diksha. Okay. This is a scriptural quote that Sanatana Goswami gives. Now, how is bell metal turned into gold? What exactly, what is the process? So there is some process that the yogis know how to do it. If one something, he eats something or consumes something and then he passes urine on gold, on bell metal, it will turn into gold. Some method is there. So it's not simply you can't just take bell metal and by chemical analysis in some chemistry lab do something, and that's not how you make it. But it was apparently common knowledge during Sanatana Goswami's time. So when he said that, people who were learned in the scriptures immediately understood. Oh, like this ordinary human being also can become a bona fide Brahmana by guna karma through an authentic process of diksha. So like that, there must be some procedure of slowing down the breathing, or I don't know if it's slowing down the breathing or whether actually breathing is suspended periodically. I am not trained in Ashtanga Yoga. the complex procedures they have. And I don't think we should get into it also. You have something else
Okay,
to
bro.
ask?
No, bro.
There are all kinds of procedures. Veda is desiratory now. So all these things are there. Very difficult processes though, must be admitted. Not for the common man. Okay. The inhabitants of those planets are empowered with eightfold achievements of mystic perfection. They do not have to learn and practice the mystic processes of yoga perfection and achieve the power of smaller like becoming small like a particle, anima siddhi, or lighter than a soft feather, lakima siddhi. They do not have to get anything and everything from anywhere and everywhere. Prapti siddhi. That means whatever they desire, it comes to them, or they have instant access to become heavier than the heaviest, mahima siddhi, or to act freely, even to create something wonderful or to annihilate anything at will, ishitva siddhi, or to control all material elements, vashitva siddhi, to possess such power as will never be frustrated in any desire, prakamya siddhi, or to assume any shape or form one may even whimsically desire, kamavasayita siddhi. All these expediencies are as common as natural gifts for the inhabitants of those higher planets. They do not require any mechanical help to travel in outer space, and they can move and travel at will from one planet to any other planet within no time. The inhabitants of the Earth cannot move even to the nearest planet except by mechanical vehicles like spacecraft. But the highly talented inhabitants of such higher planets can do everything very easily. Since is generally inquisitive to experience what is actually in such planetary systems, he wants to see everything personally. As inquisitive persons tour all over the world to gain direct local experience, the less intelligent transcendentalist similarly desires to have some experience of those planets about which he has heard so many wonderful things. The yogi can, however, easily fulfill his desire by going there with the present materialistic mind and senses. The prime inclination of the materialistic mind is to lord it over the material world, and all the siddhis mentioned above are features of domination over the world. The devotees of the Lord are not ambitious to dominate a false and temporary phenomenon. On the contrary, a devotee wants to be dominated by the supreme predominator, the Lord. A desire to serve the Lord, the supreme predominator, is spiritual or transcendental, and one has to attain this purification of the mind and the senses to get admission into the spiritual kingdom. With the materialistic mind, one can reach the best planet in the universe, but no one with the materialistic mind can enter into the kingdom of God. Senses are called spiritually purified when they are not involved in sense gratification. Senses require engagements, and when the senses are engaged totally in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, they have no chance to become contaminated by material infections. 23. Yogeshwaranam gatimahurantar vahistrilokyah pavanantaratmanam na karmabhistam gatimapnuvanti vidyatapo yoga samadhi bhajam. The transcendentalists are concerned with the spiritual body. As such, by the strength of their devotion, service, austerities, mystic power, and transcendental knowledge, their movements are restricted within and beyond the material worlds. The fruity workers or the gross materialists can never move in such an unrestricted manner. यतः कर्मगतिवत् न योगगति परिच्छिन्ना इत्यतः. The movement of yoga is very different from the movement based on karma or pious credits. They can move in Maharloka and so on. They can also move outside of Brahmanda. भोगेपि योगिनः न कर्मभिः साधारण्यम्. Even for materialistic enjoyment, the yogis are not to be lumped in with the karmis. The materialistic scientists endeavor to reach other planets by mechanical vehicles is only a futile attempt. One can, however, reach heavenly planets by virtuous activities, but one can never expect to go beyond Swarga, or that means, or Janaloka, by such mechanical or materialistic activities, either gross or subtle. The transcendentalists who have nothing to do with the gross material body can move anywhere within or beyond the material worlds. Within the material worlds, they move in the planetary systems of the Mahar, Jana, Tapo, and Satyaloka. And beyond the material worlds, they can move in the Vaikuntha as unrestricted spacemen. Narada Muni is one of the examples of such spacemen, and Durvasa Muni is one of such mystics. By the strength of devotion service, austerities, mystic powers, and transcendental knowledge, everyone can move like Narada Muni or Durvasa Muni. It is said that Durvasa Muni traveled throughout the entirety of material space and part of spiritual space within 1 year only. The speed of the transcendentalists can never be attained by the gross or subtle transcendentalists. Yes.
Prabhu, Durvasa Muni, he could only visit. He could not stay there, no?
It looks like.
Because he was not devotee.
Looks like. Text 24. Vaishvanaram yati vihaya sagata sushumnaya brahma pathena shochita vidhuta kalkotha harerudasthan prayati chakram nripasaishu maram. O king, when such a mystic passes over the Milky Way by the illuminating Sushumna to reach the highest planet Brahmaloka, he goes first to Vaishvanara, the planet of the deity of fire, wherein he becomes completely cleansed of all contaminations. And thereafter, he goes still higher to the circle of Shishumara to relate with Lord Hari, the personality of Godhead. So that pathway by which that yogi moves is now stated in 8 verses, beginning with text 24. विहायसा आकाशेन तत्र च ब्रह्मलोकपथेन गतः सन् प्रथमं वैश्वानरम् अग्नि अभिमानिनीं देवतां याति. So first of all, while traveling through the sky on the pathway to Brahmaloka, first of all, he meets the deity of fire. Tena upayena, through which means through the Sushumnaya Nadya. He travels through the Sushumna Nadi. Sacha dehat bahirapi vitata asti ityaha. That is extended even beyond one's body. So many things are going on in the universe. Shochisa, Jyotirmaya, and that is brilliant. Vidhutas, Tyaktaha, Kalkaha, Malaha, Yenasa. Vapya, Sajjamana ityartha. So the soul who is moving forward, he is now devoid of contamination, which means he does not become emotionally attached to any of these places. Utastad, Puristad, Vartamanam, Hare Sambandhit, Tararupam, Narayana Adhishtitam ityartha. He reaches the stars predominated by Narayana. Shaishumaram Chakram, Panchamaskanthe Vakshimanam, Shishumara Ashrayam Jyotish Chakram. Chakrasthani Adityadi Dhruvantani Padani Prayati. He attains the celestial sphere which is related to Shishumara, which we will come across in the 5th canto. That Shishumara Chakra is related to the sun on one side and Dhruvaloka on the other side. The pole star of the universe and the circle thereof are called the Shishumara circle. And therein the local residential planet of the personality of God, Kshirodakshai Vishnu, is situated. Before reaching there, the mystic passes over the Milky Way to reach Brahmaloka, and while going there, he first reaches Vaishwanara Loka, the place of the demigod controlling fire. On Vaishwanara Loka, the yogi becomes completely cleansed of all dirty sins acquired while in contact with the material world. The Milky Way in the sky is indicated herein as the way leading to Brahmaloka, the highest planet of the universe. Okay, so that is today's quota is over. Okay, so we'll stop at that.
So you said you will read Bhaktivinoda Thakur's songs.
Oh, okay. That's very interesting. That is interesting. Let me take it up. Vivekananda. Right. Anyway. Achyutananda, born in 1860, Sri Anada Prasad was Sri Bimala Prasad's eldest brother and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's only son by his first wife, who died when Anada Prasad was only 10 months old. At birth, his nose was decorated with a conspicuous tilak mark, which gradually faded away as he grew up. Known also as Achyutananda or simply Achyuta, he was married at 18 and begot 3 daughters and a son. By nature, he was open-hearted and kind. After graduation, Achyuta took up government service, but in 1884, at age 24, he became mentally imbalanced, unable to function normally. Although throughout his life he had never shown interest in bhajan, after becoming insane, he sometimes liked to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, and Hare Murare Madhugaita Bhare. In 1895, Achyuta remained very weak after a bout of flu. Gradually, his condition worsened, and neither allopathic nor Ayurvedic treatment helped. After he had passed a week in a near coma, the end seemed nigh. The end seemed nearby. So his brothers and sisters gathered around him. As Achyuta's siblings began to sing more sweetly the Mahamantra, the morbid atmosphere of impending death transformed into blissful Vaikuntha. Although he had been refusing to eat or drink anything, toward dawn, Achyuta accepted from his stepmother a little charnamrita of the household Govardhan Shila, along with Vrindavan dust, Jagannath Prasad, and Prasad Tulasi leaves. Then an effulgence appeared about his navel and spread up to his throat. Without difficulty, he began chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra with a thick flow of tears. While a thick flow of tears issued from his closed eyes, and Vaishnava Tilak appeared on his forehead, arms, stomach, chest, and throat. Haltingly, Achyuta spoke of being acquainted in a previous life with his 4th brother, Bimala Prasad, who was present there and elaborated his glories. Simultaneously, numerous pure Vaishnavas manifested their presence in spiritual forms, all decorated with tilak and holding japamalas. Their combined luster far outshone the oil lamps burning in the room. Achyuta then revealed, in my previous birth as a Shiva Vaishnava, I spoke against Gaudiya philosophical teachings. To clear that offense, I took birth in this house. The essence of all spiritual practice is Harinam. The holy name is not different from Krishna himself. Those who chant the holy name without offense will achieve all perfection. Oh, dear brothers, hearing the holy name chanted offenselessly by you, I have been freed from my offense and I have achieved perfection. Remember my words. End of quote. Achyuta next expressed his desire to see the Lord's form. As soon as a picture of Lord Chaitanya was brought before him, he again burst into tears and gazed fixedly on the beautiful figure of Mahaprabhu. On his forehead appeared a sign of Sri Vaishnava Tilak, which gradually transformed into Gaudiya Tilak, and finally a representation of Omkara, which moved to the top of his forehead and stayed there briefly before his life had departed and other symptoms of death manifested. Although Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was not among those present, he later commented that because Achyuta had left this plane at an auspicious time in the manner of a yogi and in the presence of pure devotees chanting the holy names, and had passed so many years like a sense enjoyer and madman to requite, to compensate for his offenses to Vaishnavas, he must have attained a kind of transcendental Vaishnava destination. He wrote an article on this. This presentation is based on that. Specifically, as Achyuta's siblings began to sing most sweetly the Mahamantra, this happened, Bhaktivinoda Thakur notes, when they were singing the Hare Krishna mantra. But when it came to 1 lakh holy names, then at that time Achyuta became conscious. And that's when he started speaking. This is a Bengali article. It was reprinted in Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj's Gaudiya Patrika in the 50s. Interesting. Specifically began to talk about Vimala Prasad. So from that itself we can understand this, what Siddhanta Saraswati was understood to be a premier son of Bhaktivinoda. All right. Vanshakalpadurvyashcha kripasindushyevacha paritanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.